Good evening.
I should tell you that tonight that what we're hearing out of Dallas is there are protesters on both sides. The Washington Post reporting in the headlines just on their online. Hecklers even confronting Ted Cruz at the town hall meeting, and then in response, his people yelling USA, USA as the hecklers heckle him. This issue is not going away, is it?
No, look, this is a very bad law with huge, horrific consequences for the quality of American health care and for the American economy. And there's a unity among Republicans about the necessity of repealing and replacing it. There's a disagreement about this tactical suggestion from Senator Cruz, Senator Lee, and former Senator DeMint about how to go about it, getting it repealed. But there's a look. Every day we hear new evidence. We had this week a large national chain, clothing chain, that said we're going to move to 30-hour work weeks for all of our hourly employees. Think about the hardship that's going to create for so many people, because some of them need 35, 36 hours a week in order to make ends meet. Now they're going to get 30 hours at the store that they now work at, and they got to go find the hours that they need in order to make their nut. They're going to need to go someplace else, try and find a second job, work out schedules, work out transportation. This is happening everywhere across the country. We had stories about how many people are going to lose their existing coverage. We've got skyrocketing premiums, particularly in the individual market. And this is a disaster economically for our country because its price tag is understated. And even when it was understated, it was horrific. And when we begin to implement it, we're going to find out it's a lot more costly than it was expected to be.
Well, I don't even know how we even get to that implementation point. I know in the beginning you heard many people say this is a great law, this is great. We're not hearing any of that. What we know now is that their employer mandate has been delayed. We've got caps on the premiums and the copay. That has been that was supposed to be limited. Apparently that's not going to be limited. Unions are upset. Small businesses claim they're getting hit. You've got the reduced hours. Now we're learning that there are missed deadlines. More than 50% of the deadlines set so far have been missed. Many insignificant, but just one material one, it will matter to a lot of people. And October 1st, when these exchanges are supposed to start, is just around the corner. And frankly, I don't see a lot going on in this town getting ready for this.
Well, there's probably a lot going on behind the scenes that we're not seeing, but we do know this. The exchanges are supposed to be an electronic, if you will, marketplace where you go online in order to find, pick and choose among different kinds of insurance products. Now, remember, the core of the Obamacare law is to force all that product to look alike. There's a thing called essential benefits provision, and that basically mandates that everything has got to sort of look alike. So there's not much competition there in terms of price and different kind of programs and offerings to people. So everything sort of looks alike. What I've been told is that this electronic marketplace is such that if you sign up, you're not automatically signed up into the system. They then have to run off a hard copy of your document and re-enter all of that information because they don't have the computer systems in place to allow it to be seamless. So even when it appears on the surface like it's all ready to go, we've got an exchange set up and it's ready to go, in reality, the paperwork in the back of this is going to just drown people, because what's going to happen is it's not electronically set up to sort of accept your application, communicate it to all the providers, keep the electronic record. No, it's going to go into a file and they have to run it off and re-enter it into various programs in order to send it to the places it needs to go in order to keep the documents they need to keep. That's how screwed up this is. They don't have the fundamental essentials of this thing done, and people are getting breaks. If you're a big company, you get a break because, by gosh, we're going to not have the employer mandate kick in for 1 year. But if you're an individual who has to go out and buy insurance, we're not going to delay the individual mandate, which means you better have insurance by January 1 of next year, or you could be fined, and the IRS is going to be checking very closely to make certain you've got insurance.
Well, the big company gets that break because the big company can hire lobbyists, and they can lobby the Hill, they can lobby the president. If you're an individual, you have a hard time even putting food on the table. I mean, it's like you really don't have any shot at that.
Let me be clear, though. I don't think it was lobbying by companies that caused the administration to say, let's delay the employer mandate. I don't even think it was the reason that they gave.
It didn't hurt when the unions came calling. It sure didn't hurt when the unions came calling and saying, look, we elected you as president. We got the votes out. We got our unions out. Now they turn out they don't like it. Who do you think is, you think they're not listening to the unions? You think those aren't the big donors? You think a lot of these people in these big companies aren't big donors?
Yeah, well, look, I think the thing on the employer mandate, sure, maybe there have been companies that have been grousing about it, but I think what they did is they looked at it and said, wait a minute, we have now figured out that this law that we wrote, that nobody read before we passed it, that we remember Nancy Pelosi famously saying, we need to pass a law so we know what's in it. Well, what they found out is this. There's a perverse incentive, a disincentive, if you will, in the law for employers to continue to provide coverage. An employer may put out now $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 a year in premium support for their employee under the Affordable Care Act. If they dump that coverage, they pay a $2,000 a person fine. And so what I think what the Obama administration did is said, oh, wait a minute, we're going to have a lot of companies that are going to figure out that it makes a lot more economic sense for them to dump their existing coverage, throw people into the exchanges, and people are going to then have to navigate the exchanges. We don't want that happening in an election year, so let's delay it until after the election.
If you want an example of sort of the quintessential disincentive, the whole program it depends upon one thing: is that everyone put money in the pot so that the healthy people can pay for the sick people. Everybody's got to be in. And, of course, now we got lots of people get waivers, exemptions, everything. Not everybody's in the pot giving. And talk about disincentive is that the healthy people don't want to be paying for the rich people, and so they don't even want to buy the mandate. And the plus the fact, if they do get sick, they can go out the next day because they have a pre-existing and get into the game. So the disincentive, right. Nobody has an incentive to, if you're healthy and if you're young, what in the world is your incentive to pay for the sick and the elderly?
Yeah, well, look, let's look at two aspects of that. One of which you just touched on. There's a provision called community rating. What that basically means is that younger workers are going to be charged a higher premium than they would otherwise pay, so that that additional money they're going to be putting into the pot can be used to subsidize the coverage for older, less healthy workers. Now, what that means is the administration is very blatant about this. That next year they're looking to have about 7 million people sign up. And what they're looking for is not just to have 7 million people sign up, but to have a significant slug of those be younger, healthier workers whose money can then subsidize the older, less healthy workers that community rating gives a pass to. So that's one problem. The second problem is this. In the law, it is set up in such a way that it counts on a large number of people signing up who today are covered by, who are not covered, or who are covered by their employer-provided coverage and are shipped into the exchanges. What a lot of companies have decided over the last several years to do is to self-insure. If you're a company of 300, 500, 1,000 workers, it is cheaper for you to provide quality insurance for your employees by, in essence, becoming your own insurer. You got a big enough pool of people, particularly when you get up to 1,000 or 1,500 or 2,000 workers. So virtually every large company in America like that today, any company of 1,000 or more employees, is very likely to be covered by a self-funded plan, particularly those union plans. Remember those 3 union guys you talked about? You mentioned earlier, the head of the culinary, the head of the hospitality workers, and the head of the Teamsters, all complaining. That's because the vast majority of their employees, their workers, their members, are covered by self-funded plans with their corporate partners. And this law the administration has got to try and undermine those plans in order to try and drive those people back into the Affordable Care Act, because right now, as a self-funded plan, you're not subject to the community rating. So your workers pay a premium based on their health and their lifestyle. It is not subject to the essential benefits. That is to say, this requirement that you got to load this up with all kinds of things. Instead, the companies have greater freedom to design a policy that meets the needs of their workers and is cost effective and something they can afford. So companies are using the self-funded as a way to in essence avoid the Affordable Care Act, and nearly 6 out of every 10 workers who have insurance in it today in America are covered by a self-funded plan. And that's why the administration is going to go after these self-funded plans and why the unions were so worried.
Karl, more than anything else, I want people to have access to medical care. I mean, I have seen, how painful it is when people don't have access to it. I want it more than anything else. But unless we do it smart and right, it is catastrophic for those people who don't have the means. You and I will always be fine. We're okay. We'll always figure it out. But it's going to be catastrophic for some people. And the whole problem is the program that we've created. But more than anything else, I want a smart, good, effective program that works. But there are even other aspects of it that is deeply disturbing to some. These navigators that have been hired, it's unclear how much information they will have about the American people, and yet there's no sort of background check for them. Now, we can't spend a fortune sending the FBI out to every single one of their homes, but there's something fundamentally wrong when we would give people who have absolutely no background check access to actually very important personal information. We're just this is all just messed up in so many ways.
Right. Well, and look, these navigators, a lot of these groups are political groups. The Planned Parenthood. I mean, this is a political payoff by the administration, spending several hundred millions of dollars to, in essence, fund community groups and to fund political allies around the country. And again, they're doing it in they're doing it in a calculated way. They're particularly focused on what kind of signups can we have among younger, healthier workers in order to hide the true cost of the Affordable Care Act at the beginning of it and subsidize the coverage that we're giving to older, less healthy workers because of the community rating. So yeah, there are a lot of stuff about this that stinks. We're about ready to have nearly $1 billion worth of advertising between private groups, but about 3/4 of it coming from the federal government, of advertising to sing the benefits of the Affordable Care Act. I thought this thing was so good it would sell itself, but no, we're going to spend $700 million, and the television ads are going to be run, at least from the initial planning stage. We're not going to be run in New York and Los Angeles and Chicago, where the big television markets in the country. Instead, they were going to be doing things like running ads in Harlingen, Texas. They're going to be running ads, incidentally, in Charlotte, North Carolina, and New Orleans, Louisiana. Why those two markets? Because they are television markets in states with Democrat senators up for election next year who've been defending their votes on the Affordable Care Act. There's no rhyme or reason for the television buys except let's go on the offense and use this for politics. Most of the television advertising dollars will be spent in states with Republican governors, all, I think, designed to try and mitigate the political impact of the Affordable Care Act by running a taxpayer-funded multi-hundred million dollars worth of television ads to boost a program that the American people do not like.
You know, I usually like to be right about things, Karl, but this is the one instance where I hope all my thoughts about this and all my study about this is dead wrong. I hope in the end that, that this turns out that I'm dead wrong on all this stuff because, it looks very, there are I think a lot of reasons to be concerned that this Obamacare is not going to do what so many Americans really need. But